Welcome back now to our Face the Nation Roundtable. Joining us from Berkeley, California, Michael Lewis, the author of the big bestseller, The Big Short, which chronicles the Wall Street financial collapse, and New York Times columnist, our old friend, another best-selling author, Tom Friedman, author of Hot, Flat, and Crowded. It's now out in paperback. Michael, let me start with you. Larry Summers says that the administration does believe that no institution now is too big to fail. Do you think that's what they believe?
Well, that's not true right now, but do I think they believe that after they pass this legislation that will be true? Yes, I do think that. I do believe that. I think that the only kind of quibble I have with their position right now is that they really are squashing talk about the leverage that the big banks are running. I mean, there's a movement to put a hard cap on how much risk these firms can take, and the administration doesn't, for whatever reason, seem to want that, and that's unfortunate because leverage is at the heart of the problem, and it's surprising it isn't addressed in the bill. But just generally, I think the bill is a force for good. I mean, we've got a financial system that is so radically disconnected from the productive economy, and too big to fail is only really one issue. You want our financiers to be incentivized to create wealth, not to destroy it. And right now, they're incentivized to destroy it.
You know, I think your book, and I'm going to give you a big endorsement here right now, which I don't know if that helps or hurts your book, but it does the best job that I have seen thus far of explaining what actually happened. And one of the things that your book points out is that some of these traders who were putting together these packages, these derivatives, they didn't themselves even know what was in these things. And now we're talking about new legislation, but how do you legislate and correct things where the people involved don't even know what they're doing?
Yeah, no, it is extraordinary, the level of just kind of sheer incompetence at the center of the system. I mean, the story I tell is a story of a handful of people who kind of saw this coming from back in 2005. And giving lie to the many CEOs on Wall Street who would like you to believe that no one could have seen it coming, because some people did indeed see it coming, including some traders at Goldman Sachs. But the problem, I think, it really, to me, at the bottom of it all, this last period in our financial history is a story of incentives. That people were incentivized essentially not to see the truth right in front of their eyes. That if you pay someone huge sums of money not to see a coming financial collapse, they won't see the coming financial collapse. If you pay them huge sums of money to lend trillions of dollars to people who will never repay the loans, they'll do it. And so the question is how you rejigger the incentives inside the financial system. And the bill does get at this. It's easy to just say, no, it's all bad, but it's not all bad. Actually, the bill's got some really important things in it, and there are other important things that are being discussed. And I think the big thing is the politics of this issue has changed so radically, very fast, right. And the possibilities are now endless.
All right, well, let's go to Tom Friedman. You are here in Washington, Tom. The paper's full of this stuff from Goldman Sachs this morning, where people at Goldman Sachs, one of our big financial banking institutions, it turns out they are actually betting against the housing market and sending each other high-five telegrams, emails, when it looks like the housing market is going down. I mean, it's like these banks have become casinos.
Well, as Michael points out in his book, Bob, there were a whole host of people doing that, from big institutions to small boutique hedge funds. The system was set up to encourage that, because basically underlying the system were two principles they talk about in the world of banking: IBG and YBG. I'll be gone or you'll be gone. So as Michael said, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, the rating agencies, the people we would count on to say whether this package of bonds is just a bunch of junk or is really AAA, they were actually incentivized to create models that said it's actually not junk, it's really AAA. And they could do that because they could pass on the responsibility to somebody else. I'll be gone. And by the way, if you take out a mortgage on your house, even though you make peanuts and it's a $750,000 house and all the bank has asked you, can you fug up a knife? If you do that, no problem. You can't pay it off. You'll be gone. So there was a huge ethical breakdown underneath the whole thing because, as Michael said, the incentives were so great the other way.
Why is there so much opposition to this bill? I mean, when we read of these outrages in the paper, and yet Republicans say these reforms won't work. Yeah, we need reforms, but not these reforms. Why is that?
Incentives. The incentives are for both parties to milk Wall Street for massive campaign contributions. And therefore, they're on this knife edge between the interest of the voters, which is to regulate, bring transparency and some kind of limits to this banking system, and their own party interests, which are to milk this industry for all they can.
So, Michael, what needs to happen now? I mean, how would you judge the shape of Wall Street right now? We know what happened in 2008. We know about the big bailouts that came and all of that. But is Wall Street healthy now?
Oh, God, no. Nothing's changed. In fact, it almost built into the bailout was the assumption that nothing would change for a while, because we've been in the system for 18 months now where essentially the government is gifting the banks out of their problems. And so the last thing it's wanted to do is to attack these firms' revenues with financial reform. And financial reform, if it is done well, will reduce the profitability of these enterprises. Nothing has changed. Nothing important except, that's not fair. Two things. One is that the traders at big Wall Street firms who previously were playing with shareholders' money are now paying with taxpayers' money. So that it's now pretty explicitly understood that the gains are privatized and the losses are going to be socialized. But the other thing that's changed that's more hopeful is that the relationship of these institutions to the larger society has clearly changed. In that there was a time not long ago when they were essentially an unquestioned master class, and now they are viewed as almost enemies of the state. And the problem that politicians have that want to stand up, or want to stymie reform, is nobody wants to stand up and say that's what they want to do.
All right.
There's been a big change in public sentiment. It just hasn't found political expression yet.
Tom Friedman, I want to ask you about this business now that the administration has decided to postpone bringing up the climate change bill. I know you write a lot about that. What do you make of what's going on here?
This is a disaster, Bob. This is a travesty. Basically, we are about to see the first bipartisan legislation for radical move toward more green energy, more green jobs, and putting a price on carbon. It was all set up for Monday. We had Lindsey Graham, Kerry, Lieberman. Industry was coming down. The administration, for its political reasons, decided it wants to elevate immigration. Lindsey Graham is completely isolated on the Republican side. I think he freaked out a little bit here at the end. And the result is, Bob, right now in Beijing, they're high-fiving each other. Oh yeah, baby. This means the Americans are going to be paralyzed on green tech, okay, for another couple of years. China's already leading the world now in wind production. China's already leading the world in solar production. Where the industry goes, okay, research goes. You're not even need an immigration bill, Bob.
Well, help me here. You say the administration for its political purposes. What political purposes?
Well, I think they're worried that Harry Reid is going to lose in Nevada, where you have a big Hispanic vote. Hispanics are very concerned about an immigration bill that will bring some legality to illegal immigrants here. Barbara Boxer is vulnerable in California. And so, yeah, the president has done and talked a lot on green energy, but I think there are a lot of people in the White House who prefer to talk about that, keep us distracted, shiny object over here, okay? But basically, they're interested in the raw politics of this. The raw politics isn't unimportant. I mean, you got to vote.
Larry Summers says they can do both.
You can do both? Well, first of all, good luck. Immigration is probably the most hotly divided issue, in the Senate. And we already had the House pass an energy bill. It was waiting in the Senate. We have an energy Senate bill. There is no immigration bill anywhere. This is about politics on both sides. Okay? Poor Lindsey Graham, shame on the Republican Party. There's one Republican for advancing green energy in this country. One Republican senator dares step out. So he's completely isolated. And the Democrats are worried about Harry Reid. Have a nice day.
Well, I want to wish both you and Michael Lewis a nice day. I think you're having a nice day out there, Michael. Your book just keeps on selling, the situation being what it is. Thanks to both of you.